Well, I guess I get to be the introducer. So welcome to this occasion where we've come to dedicate a piece of Union County history. And I want to say just very shortly how thrilled I am that we have preserved this piece of Union County history. In the grand scheme of things, it may seem small and insignificant just to preserve one little thing. But when you think of all of the artifacts over the years that have been lost in Union County, the buildings that are gone, the people that are gone and took their stories with them that weren't written down, it's really just, an honor to even be able to preserve anything. And there is a wonderful story behind this particular artifact that's been preserved, and you'll hear all about that in the next few minutes. But right now, I'd like to introduce to you the Mayor of Union County, Jason Bailey.
Good friends here, some county officials, and we appreciate that. The museum has a very important part here in Union County. Number one, to preserve the history. If we don't preserve our history and learn from it, what are we going to do in the future, right? So I appreciate you guys doing that, and so many people stand up and take care of this museum. Thank you very much for that, so very much. And of course, we're here today to dedicate this artifact out here in front. I've had a lot of people ask me, coming up to the courthouse, what are they doing at the museum? So you all have caught some attention with people driving by and putting this out there. But it looks beautiful. It works right. It blends in with the museum. Everything looks great. But again, welcome to Union County and welcome to the museum. Most of you all are Union County folks. But with that being said, it's my pleasure to introduce to you today our Senator, Mr. Frank Nicely. Come on up, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Well, I've spent a lot of time driving a little hack like that. In fact, just the other day, I cut a little campaign footage with my granddaughter driving a little two-wheel hack. But what I want you all to, I'm a historian myself. I'm the unofficial historian for the Senate. Not because I know a lot, because they know so little. That I know more than they do. But I want you to pull up an old poem written by Oliver Wendell Holmes. I'm pretty sure Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote it, called The Amazing One-Horse Shay. Now up in New England, they called a little two-wheel hack like that, they called it a shay, S-H-A-Y. And it is an interesting and amusing poem about the old Parsons who got tired of his shay breaking, and he searched the whole country and got the finest of everything and made him the amazing one-horse shay that lasted 100 years to the day, and just turned into a pile of dust. But it's an interesting poem. I guess my favorite poem of all that I've ever read. But I appreciate history. We need to teach our kids history. It'd be good if there'd been a few more young people here to share history. I indoctrinate my grandkids. I teach them history, whether they want to learn it or not. And I'll tell them the same story over and over, and they'll say, "Well, Poppy, you told me that story last week." I said, "Well, you didn't learn your ABCs in 1 second. I said, "If you know it, tell it back to me." And of course, they'll always get most of it right, but not all of it. But it's important that we instill into our kids and grandkids history. And East Tennessee is so rich in history. I like to read East Tennessee history. So you need to read the old history books that are written 100 years ago. And they'll talk about little insignificant things in there, some most interesting stuff that you ever listen to. But I'm not going to take much longer. I've got a couple of things I want to tell you about. How many of you all have ever heard of a Witt saddle? Made by J.W. Witt. It made over here at Luttrell. And when I was little, we'd go by and my dad would say, "Now there's where those Witt saddles were made." There's an old frame building right there on the corner. And he got that saddle patented in 1911. And it's the most comfortable saddle for a walking horse that you ever rode in your life. And I've got it originally. It's got a little brass tag on the back of it. It says, patented in 1911 by J.W. Witt, Luttrell, Tennessee. And the other thing, you're late, young lady. The other thing is, I've got a banjo that I rescued out of an old broke down log house when I was just a little kid. And it's dated 1863. And it's got the top of it's wooden like a fiddle. They've got two other down at the museum in Knoxville that they say they know they were made up here at the end of Clinch Mountain by somebody. They don't know who made them. And I'm going to try to get all three. It's obvious they're all three the same. We need to put something in the paper and see if anybody remembers grandma or granddaddy talking about the old man that made the fiddles at the end of Clinch Mountain. But anyway, I appreciate what you all are doing. Hopefully, one of these days, we'd like to get you a little state money and do a little expansion. Thanks a lot.
Got that on camera.
I'm gonna read from some notes here that I made about this hack out here. We're gonna start back in 1905 with a postman here by the name of Ed Moore. Ed was born in 1905 to J.L. Moore and Florence Petrie Moore. Picture of going up from 1905 to 1910 concerning the hack. There's a picture back here on the television of a hack in 1910. It's a mail hack, and they delivered mail from the Liberty Hill post office to Mrs. Vicky, I think I was saying more, Mrs. Vicky Butcher. We don't know if that's the same hack that we have out here in this building now or not. We can't tell. It's hard to find any information on that hack. Back in the 1880s, there was about 20,000 companies, most of them small companies that made hacks and wagons and surreys and sulkies across the United States. By 1910, they were down to like a few hundred of them because the horseless carriage was coming on. Model T Ford came on later. We scoot up to 1918, but we know this hack out here was used by Dempsey Haskell and his to-be wife, Elsie Seymour. They came to Maynardville on it to get a marriage license. That's verified by Bonnie Haskell, who was their daughter. In the 1920s, talk about Ed Moore, born in 1905. In 1925, Ed was 20 years old. He started delivering mail here in Union County. He delivered mail for 47 years here in this county. Spent 2 years overseas in World War II, drafted in 1943. He worked with the U.S. Army Postal Service through France into Germany, and after World War II he came back, started his rural route again. And today, people my age remembers Ed because we had very little candy back then in the 1950s. And Ed would buy candy. Do you remember the Kits candy? The Kits, 4 little pieces in a little cellophane package. You get chocolate, vanilla, banana, I can't remember. Strawberry, 4 flavors. You'd have all 4 flavors in the poke. Y'all know what a poke is? Brown paper sack. And he would, if you met him at the mailbox, as we called them back then, he'd give each kid 1 piece of candy. And me and my 3 brothers got it every day when we wasn't working in the fields to get a piece of candy. Not only us, but every kid on that route would get candy. Ed and his wife never had children. So we have a fond spot in our heart today from him giving us candy back at that time. Ed supposedly used that hack, from what I've been told, a couple of times, or maybe more. I guess the Haskell family either sold it to the post office here in Maynardville. At that time, there was 14 post offices here in the county. Most of them in the country stores. I'm sure a lot of you people my age has been into a country store that have, there's an example right over there in the corner of one. They have their own little post office. You go to the post office, you live locally and get your mail. Otherwise, back up through until the early mid-30s, a lot of the rural routes, and I can remember Sharps Chapel, where my people came from, we would go to visit our grandparents. We could drive up Dry Hollow Road about 100 yards. The road ended. There was a little path from there on up the creek, about a half mile from my grandfather's cabin up there. We had to walk up. It was up in the 50s before that road was completed all the way up to the top of the hill to another road. There's a lot of those here in the Appalachian Mountains at that time. And horses were used to deliver a lot of mail back at that time. But they had used this out here, his hack, to go to Luttrell or either Corrigan. We cannot find out which, or maybe both, to meet the mail train, to get the mail, and ferry it back over to the post office here in Maynardville, where it would be separated out and dispersed to these other mailboxes throughout the county. But that's the story on the hack, and the hack was stored after World War II. After the T model came out, then the A model, we had more roads built here in this part of the country, better roads for these trails that we had, and they used cars, automobiles. I think in 1910, someone told me there was 4 automobiles in Union County, Tennessee, in 1910. I can't remember who told me that, but someone did. But he had got the hack, and I guess after World War II, he didn't use it much. It stayed in his barn until he died in 1974. And his wife donated the hack, gave it to the lady sitting over here, her ancestors.
My dad,
Your dad.
Menace Mize.
Menace Mize, and then J.D. Mize rebuilt it. Your brother. He rebuilt the hack,
The wheels. Yeah.
the wheels. And then, by the time he got this done, your dad, Menace Mize, he sold the horse. He didn't have a horse to look. This hack has been up and down over the years, but there's no way to actually determine when this was made. There's no manufacturer's emblem on the hack anywhere that I can find. But it had to be a manufactured hack. You look at the foundation of this thing, underneath there, that had to be forged somewhere in a factory. And it could have been a kit. I don't know if they had kits back then or not you put together to make these things. But I'm going to call up Martha Mize Rose now, and let her make a few statements about the hack. And since her family had it for such a long time there. Hold up, Martha. By the way, this is the first time I've seen this lady today, 1962. Or her husband.
And I can't believe it's St. James Ferry I went to school in. I don't remember him writing so good back then, but I guess Miss McDonald would remember. I'm Martha Mize Rose, and the hack, I never heard that, is always the mail cart, Ed's mail cart. That's the way we knew it. And Ed and Vita were our neighbors. They're on Main Street. I'm the daughter of Menace and Dee Mize, and they were wonderful neighbors to us. And through them, our family was able to travel. They took us everywhere. We didn't have a car, and they took us to church everywhere we went. Well, anyway, the mail cart was always here. And it was in the barn up at Ed's for years and years. And Dennis, I know a lot of those boys, when everybody played in the barn at Ed's, and they'd sit there forever. And then after that, Daddy got it. Daddy always took anything that a horse would pull. So I can't imagine him being without a horse. But anyway, the mail cart was there at the house, and my brother Jimmy, my oldest brother, and Daddy rebuilt it, or fixed it up a little bit, and they had wheels made for it by the Amish down in Crossville. And that's where the new wheels are. And then it just sat there. After Daddy passed, it went to Wayne, my brother, and he put it in his garage. And I don't know if he painted it red. I don't know when it became red. I don't know. But it sounds like Wayne. But anyway, it sat there for a long time. And Wayne was always willing to give it to the museum and wanted it to be here. But of course, there wasn't any room to put it. So it sat there. And so I'm so glad that it's home now. And I know Wayne would be proud, and Mother and Daddy and Jimmy and all of us. So we're just thankful for the Moore family and, you know, what they meant to us. So that's all I know of the mail cart. Thank you.
Okay. That cart certainly has a deep history to it here in Union County. It's been here for a long, long time, since probably about around 1900, I would estimate from all the things I've studied on that cart. We moved up now through time from 1905 to about 1978. This building was not here in 1978. This was school property here. Am I right on that, Freddie? School property at that time. I was talking to Carlos Carter a while ago. He was going to get up here and tell about being one of the founders, the original founders of this museum. Started in 1978. Him and Gene Tharp and Margaret Wolf, the three of us, got together and got the idea in 1978, let's get a museum here to preserve some of the history of this county, because it's vast, it's just limitless. And in 1980 is when it was founded, he said. That's when they got, he contributed money to it. Roy Aker contributed $25,000. I've been told 20, but he said $25,000. And the state of Tennessee contributed $65,000 to build this building here. And this gentleman right here behind the camera is a man that was a contractor that built the building sometime after 1980. We can't remember when it was built. Ellen, do you remember? Have you read it?
I think it was 1990 or 92. Does that sound right?
1990 or 1992 is when the building was completed. And he said when they got the building, they had nothing put in it. When they got to build it, it's paid for, it's empty. So Gene Tharp had amassed quite a lot of artifacts from the county and the surrounding counties here over his tenure as a school teacher here in the county. And he contributed everything he had, brought that in here. And then, I think him and I think Gerald, did you go with him to Georgia to pick up some more stuff at the museum here? Freddie? Freddie. Was that you, Freddie?
No, I didn't go with
You didn't go with him? Well, he told me a story.
it. If I did, I forgot it.
Well, I have the same problem every now and then. But anyway, we're going to call Gerald Simmons up now. Gerald was one of the original guys that helped get this thing going. Him, Walter Seymour. Walter, I talked to him last week. He said he would try to come over, but he said he'd been in the hospital. He really didn't look good at all. Looked like he was still in pretty bad shape. But Gerald, step up here and tell what you know about the founding of this.
I'm like Senator Nicely, I'm kind of a history buff. And I remember when Gene Tharp came to the Union County Courthouse and wanted to talk about the Roy Acuff Museum. And I'd probably heard about it a little bit before, but I didn't really get acquainted with the Roy Acuff Museum until Gene came up there. And this property at that time belonged to the Union County School Board. And I had to talk to the school board, and my brother Freddie was on the school board, and my good friend David Coppett was the superintendent of schools about this property. Well, they was concerned about property for a new high school. We got the property for the museum, and the school board got the property for a new high school down here. Marilyn Toppins told me back of this about things that happened when I was a county executive of this county. She said a lot of things happened, but she said the best part about it is, Gerald, you could still remember it. And my good friend back here behind me can too. But we got the property from the school board and we started building a museum. And I want to tell you this, I know a lot of people that was involved in the museum. But if it hadn't been for Gene Tharp, this museum probably wouldn't be here. Because he worked at it every day. Every time I talked, he would call me. What's going on? And he was a distant cousin of mine. He would call me and he'd say, cousin, what's going on with the property? Well, we're working with the school board. David Morris was the county attorney. We finally got everything worked out, and we got the property for the school board. And the Roy Acuff Museum is here now. And I'm proud of it. I don't come much, I used to, but it's here for the people, the history of Union County. And the people of Union County has a rich history. Roy Acuff was one of the big ones. Thank you for letting me say that.
Cousin, come on up here.
Buddy, oh, I'll tell you right now, I have to tell everything in
We've got
between.
a lady here now that's primarily responsible for the hack being here today and not being in California or Texas or Colorado or somewhere. I'll let her tell that story. This is, y'all know Wanda.
You buddy, you better know me. And I'm so glad to see the people here. And first of all, I want you to know that don't say a thing about anybody in Union County because 90% of them are either my cousins or kin to me or they had them for students. And I have grandchildren here and a great-grandchild. And let me go back to Veda Moore. The first person that identified me when I hit the streets of Maynardville after coming to Union County was Veda in her car. Okay, you can't hear me without that? No, they go trying to boss me around. Monroe, don't let that happen, I'm your cousin, remember? Okay, I have Brother Jimmy here. He's actually the only one of my brothers that's born in Union County. But you start studying the Union County, you'll find out that I have roots in Union County all the way around. And I've not got time to go by and tell you all the in-betweens that happened, and David Morris knows some of it as to how this came about and that came about. But the thing about it is sometime in life, you don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. And if somebody makes you mad, they give you a lecture. Has anybody had a lecture from Wanda lately? Okay, but if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And when I got ready, I decided I put this necklace on so that you could look at that and not look at me. I want to thank my students back here for not saying anything about me. And I want to comment, this was a friend of mine, Greg. They worked together, and he referred to Greg as his buddy or boy or whatever at Dempster's. You remember Gregory Allen? Well, that was my interest in having a place and having a marker for my son. He was cremated and was planted by the oak tree and has no marker. And his daughter is here today with the grandchild. And I'm glad that I have them. But when Veda saw me on the street, she looked and said, "You are Arletta's granddaughter, ain't Arletta's granddaughter." I hope that these granddaughters I have here today would be as proud of me as I was to be claimed as Arletta's granddaughter. My daddy was born in Sharps Chapel in 1913. And she was born in Sharps Chapel in 1893. So see, I go way, way back with the Perrys and the Monroes and you name it, and I've been here. So sometimes, when something come up and you get a tip-off, you don't tell everybody about it. You just go ahead and you call, and I'm sorry the Dyers are not here today. When I got my tip-off, I called Dyer, and this is exactly what I said to him. Dyer, I've been over there, and Greg and Jesse visited there, and he found out, and he identified with me with his daughter. And he said, "Well, what can I do for you?" I said, "You can do for me what you did when I was bidding on that set of dishes when you had a bidder bidding against me." So the plan was made, and the mouth was shut, and it came about. And you call it what you want to, but sometimes you don't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. It came down. I said, "What do you think it'll take?" He said, "Oh, there's not been but one bid. Somebody had a museum." And they said, "It won't take much." I said, "Well, I'll double that." And I said, "But don't let it go." And that's where the Dyers came in, because they wanted the same memorial. And you can look at some of this over here and know that they wanted the same memorial for theirs as I wanted for my son, Gregory Allen. Now, if you have any questions about it, we'll not talk about the expense or anything about that, or we won't talk about any leases or anything like that. And you boys, thank you for keeping your mouth shut. And don't ask Jimmy. I've got a sign at my house, "The world's best teacher." Just don't ask Lynn Cox or Jimmy Woods about that, because they may have a different idea. If you have questions, you have any question, most of you know me, I've always been a straight shooter, tried to be truthful, and be proud of being from Union County. When I came and Veda said, "You're Aunt Arletta's daughter," I am proud, granddaughter, I am proud to be her granddaughter. And is there anything you need to know? We've got it out here. It's in the workings. It's here to stay. And I hope that everybody enjoys the history of it. On the table over here, right behind my is some papers that Ellen has fixed, if you want a copy. And it's a pretty good little story. And then there's some pathways. I have to push it because they need every dollar they can get here, pay the light bill, phone bill, other things. They're $5, and then it's a nice little, they've done a good job on it. You might want to get you a pamphlet. Do you have any questions for me at all, or do you want me to sit down and shut up, David? Do you?
No, you've got more time.
No, well, how much am I gonna get paid?
Don't ask me that, ask Jason that.
Hey, Jason wanted to be in my room when he didn't need to be in there.
Oh,
Nancy drug him down there, and I wanted him in there. I said, well, Joyce, you don't want in here. See what he's managed to do. And this one, he went to college on what I taught him in music.
That's right.
He'll tell you about that. Any more questions? Are you happy? Do you want me to shut up? Jimmy, never said enough? I've not got my paddle with me today. Any questions at all? Is that enough cover?
That's enough, covered it all.
James, I'd like to ask, who told you that, I went down with Martha and Wanda one time to get some stuff.
Yeah.
That was 2 or 3 years ago.
That was, Carlos told me that a while ago before he left. By the way, Martha Ann's is gone down today. She's in bad shape.
Yeah, I know.
He had to leave, so.
But now, I do remember going with that.
Use particular.
But I thought you meant Gene Thorpe.
Well, he told me that you and him and I think Martha Jean went to Georgia and got some like that. One thing I wanted to say too, I asked Jim Woods back there, who's my cousin also, Wanda's brother. One time she taught him in school. I said, Jim, did Wanda ever spank you when you was in school under her? He thought a minute, he said, she spanked my blankety blank 17 times, wasn't he? Never gonna forget that, Jim.
I won't either.
Politician would
My good friend K. David Myers is with us today. He and I told him why last night. We did a little texting back and forth, and he said, do I have to make a speech today? I said, no, I don't think so. He said, I was just kidding, and I said, well, I'm not. But it's been requested if you'd like to come up and say a few words, and I'm not the one that made the request, so I didn't actually lie to you. Come on up here.
I'd be happy to say something about Ed Moore.
Yeah.
You want me to come up there?
Yeah, come on up here.
I want to take up the question about David's.
Yes, well, I got to cut off right there for me. Everyone knew Ed Moore, and I think all of you here knew Ed Moore. Ed was a fairly large man. He had a large voice. He was about the size of Senator Nicely here, maybe not hardly as tall as him. But he had a booming voice, spoke to everyone, cried out their name, whatever, all over Maynardville. And he and my dad were the best of friends. They worked in the post office for years. My dad carried Rural Route 2, and Ed carried Rural Route 3. And they had stories and all this back and forth. And Ed was about 10 years older than my dad. And my dad always liked the stories that Ed told and the jokes that Ed told. And we always were hearing about Ed. But a little more history about Ed and his family, and some of you will remember this. Ed's father was Jake Moore. He was the circuit court clerk in Union County for a number of years. And then after that, he became the clerk and master of the Chancery Court in Union County. And he and Miss Moore lived on a farm at the end of what's now Myers Lane. Did any of you ever know where Rubel and Ethel Palmer lived? Well, that white house there was where the Moores lived. And there was about a 50-acre farm in there. My grandparents lived the last house this side of the creek. Then there was a foot log, and you went across the footlog to the White House, and that's where Ed's family lived. And Ed had, I think, 4 brothers. He had a brother who lived in out west, and then his brother Vaughn Moore was the county court clerk for a number of years here in Union County. His brother Charles Roy Moore had served as clerk and master in Union County, and then he later went to work for the Federal Trade Commission in D.C., and then when he retired, he came back to Maynardville and practiced law. And many of you remember Mr. Moore. He had another brother, Carl Grady Moore, who was in the Army JAG Corps. He was an attorney. And he later lived, I think, in Middle Tennessee. But Ed was quite a character, and like I say, everyone knew him. And if you mentioned his name, well, yeah, I know Ed Moore. But this hack and all this just brings back a lot of memories about Ed and the things he'd say and the things he'd do. But this is a wonderful event we've had for this. Thank you.
I've got a mail carrying story I want to tell you. I'm Patsy Sharp, McKenzie, and my mother was Pauline Rutherford. Wanda knows my grandfather was Lum Rutherford, and he carried the mail.
And gave me $1 when I graduated from high school.
And he carried the mail in Anderson County in Blue Mud. And he had on his route people that had difficulty reading and writing. He wrote letters, he read letters, he sold stamps in the mailbox. They'd leave the money, and he carried it in a horse and buggy. And is there a saying that said the mail must go on, even on the coldest days and at muddy roads and whatever he dealt with. My mother told me this story, and it got real cold one time. And he was carrying the mail, and one of the ladies come out to the buggy and said, Lum, she said, get out of that buggy right now. You are freezing to death. Said, come in here. And she put him by the fire and started pouring black coffee down him. And he almost froze to death on the mail route. And later on, he taught school after he didn't have that job anymore. But she had a lot of stories to tell about the people on his mail route. So that was another.
Well, folks, that's going to conclude our tribute here to Hack and the mail carriers. Miss Wanda,